who is going to be a speaker also. And Cal, how you doing?
Great task. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm actually very excited for this episode. You and I kind of have threaded back and forth a few times about doing a show regarding the flywheel. We've both talked about it. I've written about it. I've done videos about it. You've mentioned it on numerous occasions in the AMAs and some of the Leo finance posts. And I think it's probably one of the most important topics we're going to cover regarding Leo. And I don't think people understand how vital it is and how much a difference this will be making in the future of Leo. And how I thought I'd approach it, or we'd approach it today, is there's a couple areas we need to touch upon. And the first thing is, I know there's a lot of people who aren't quite sure of what the flywheel is, how this works. And I thought I'd go through an example of one that is in play right now and has really accelerated over the last couple months. And I'll go step by step through it. And that will hopefully provide a strong outline for Cal so that he can then jump on and take that kind of outline and apply it to LeoDex. He's talked about LeoDex on a number of occasions on the AMAs. He's gone through the what's, when's, and how's. But I think it would be very beneficial to go through LeoDex from a flywheel perspective and watch how he joins that all together. After that, we will indulge in some Inleo, and I'll talk about some of the things pertaining to flywheel there. And we will finish it off with Cal talking about Leo Premium and the flywheel there. So obviously, as you can already ascertain, there's flywheels within flywheels. And when it comes to the flywheel as it applies to business, well, I guess before getting to that, what is this idea of a flywheel? And anybody who knows what a flywheel is, if you do a search online, it's a metal piece with gears on it, and it's used in automobiles. And the idea is simply this. It takes the most energy to get the flywheel going when it's at rest, when the car is off. And the second you turn the car on, the flywheel has to start spinning, and it takes the most energy to get the flywheel going initially. And as the flywheel starts turning, the momentum builds where less energy is required to keep the flywheel going faster at a faster and faster pace. And it's the same premise applied to business. And the king of this, in my opinion, is Amazon. Amazon has done a tremendous job with their business implementing what Bezos called the flywheel design. They started 20, maybe 25 years ago. And there's a reason why they are one of the top companies in the world in terms of market cap. I'm not going to talk about Amazon right now. I'm going to talk about Tesla. And I'm going to talk about a specific part of Tesla, data. And actually, I'm going to even narrow it down further to miles driven using their full self-driving software. And this is going to hopefully give people an example of how the flywheel effect works and how the integration and leverage takes place. So around mid-March, Tesla announced they were no longer compute constrained. And that was something Elon said, something else one of the other techie people with the company said on X, and nobody paid attention. Okay, great. What does it mean? Nobody knows, nobody cares. Not long after that, maybe a week later, they put out a chart. And this was a chart of full self-driving miles driven. And it had crossed 1 billion in the lifetime of the full self-driving program, which was, I don't know, 7, 8 years, 6 years, something like that. So they put out this chart of full self-driving miles driven, and it crossed 1 billion. Then they announced the transition from full self-drive in 11 to full self-drive in 12, which from what I understand is like going from a horse and buggy to a Ferrari. It was a major, major upgrade in the software. So we have compute constrained gone. We have a baseline of 1 billion miles, and we have an upgrade, a tremendous upgrade to the software. Right after that, they announced in the United States and Canada, they were going to offer a 30-day free trial. So anybody who wasn't on full self-driving, if you had a Tesla in the United States or Canada, and you had the hardware, which I think every car after 2015 had the hardware, you got a 30-day free trial. They also changed, which just doesn't really have an impact directly at this point in time or in this point in the story on the mileage, but they also dropped the subscription from $199 to $99. On their earnings call about 10 days ago, so this is the third week in April, the first chart showed up the third week in March. The third week in April, they had 1.25 billion miles driven on full self-driving. So they added 250 million miles in a month, whereas they'd done 1 billion the previous 6, 7 years, whatever it was. This is how the Flywheel operates. Last weekend, Elon hops on a plane, flies to China, gets approval from the Chinese government to offer full self-driving in China. In the United States and Canada, it's like 1.8 or 2 million vehicles. China adds probably another 1.5 million miles of, or 1.5 million vehicles that can add miles in. And so now we have this process, these events that took place, all of which are driving more miles. So what happened to increase these mileage? Well, the first thing everybody looks at is the full self-driving. Okay, the trial. That is true. But what is also taking place is those who already had the full self-driving, some of them are saying they went from driving on full self-driving maybe 20% of the time to now 80 or 90% of the time. So the upgrade in the software allowed them to drive longer on the software, which then creates more miles. More miles gets fed into the more compute that they keep adding, which means their training gets better and better. So when you look at full self-driving, I think it's 12.5 or 12.3.5, however they do it. The difference between 0.5 and 0.6, which used to take months, happened in 8 days. Because they had more mileage, more compute, it's creating more output. Now, the one thing I want to mention, I've gone through 7 different events. You notice I didn't mention sell more cars. I've gone through 7 events. Number 8 is add more. Now, of course, Tesla wants to sell more cars. Tesla's selling cars every day, as every other auto manufacturer is. So they're getting more cars into the field. But this whole thing took place without the addition of more vehicles. And oh, by the way, number 9, Tesla talked about licensing the software out to other manufacturers. So Tesla technically doesn't even need to sell more cars if they wanted to get more miles if they license the software out. The point being is you have many different variables all feeding into the same thing, and you can start at any point on this list and say an increase at any point has an effect elsewhere. So any miles driven, whether it's new vehicles, whether it's existing FSD drivers who drive more miles on FSD, or people who had Teslas but they didn't have the SSD, as they're adding more miles in, that's more data being fed into the compute. The compute is feeding, is processing the data. The compute presumably is spitting out a better product. which then can get more people to adopt the software. Maybe the same people drive more miles. Maybe more people drive a Tesla because of this. Maybe more companies licensing out. Rinse and repeat. That is the flywheel effect. So with that, Cal, hopefully that outline maybe gives you something to align with as you go through LeoDex if you want to take over.
Yeah. Yeah, those are great. I love the example of Amazon for a lot of reasons. And then obviously for Tesla, the flywheel, I think is going to be even more impactful as time goes on and we start to see a lot of this autonomy kind of make its way into the real world. Um, in the sense of the Leo economy, we've talked about how the goal is to build, $100 million market cap ecosystem, and then further beyond that later down the road. But, focusing on that 100 million mission, when you look at, a token economy and how to achieve that, a lot of it comes down to obviously generating revenue. And another big piece of that is, growing the liquidity and the outward facing, ability to onboard capital. So LeoDex solves that in a lot of different ways. Obviously you've got the Leo Cacao Pool, which is on Maya protocol, and that connects us to L1 assets. So, that kind of flew under the radar in some ways that, now you can literally trade Leo for pretty much all the major L1 assets, anything that's listed on Maya. And then when Maya releases their aggregator for Thorchain, it's going to be pretty much 6,000 more assets that get integrated, and then you can swap them directly with Leo. So we really just took a step to the outside world that we've never taken before. And we've got liquidity pools. Obviously, the first one we ever did was wrap Leo on Uniswap, shortly after Uniswap came out. But obviously, being on, a protocol like Maya, you now step into a world of cross-chain dexes. Because like when you're on something like Uniswap, you have, you got one essentially base chain where you can trade. So like we could trade anything that was an ERC20 token. Obviously with Ethereum fees, that makes it pretty unfeasible to trade in the amounts that most of the, community members would be trading, which I would say is largely under, a few $100s, if even that. So, this listing on Maya has that really, exponentially profound effect of connecting us to multiple blockchains, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dash, and many others. So, that's super important. And then, what we've layered on top of that with the Hive aggregation technology and LeoDex, I think is what really makes it unique. And I've talked about how, when we laid out the plan to build LeoDex, I was looking at the other UIs that service the Maya protocol right now. And, I think there's a huge lack in user experience and overall interface design. If you compare LeoDex to some of the other ones there, I think, LeoDex is better designed. Obviously, I'm pretty biased, but I think we have a really good team when it comes to, UI design and UX. So, we set out with the mission of building something that's better than what's there already. And then on top of that, I think we have a real potential to build a moat around LeoDex, and that is with the Hive aggregator. So, with the unique setup that Leo has, where there's a liquidity pool on Hive, and then there's a liquidity pool on Maya, we're able to have the Hive aggregator. So it's a unique moat that no other protocols can essentially integrate on Maya. So I'm pretty happy with how that has turned out from a technology standpoint. And then to dive into the flywheel of it, so you've got essentially two key ways that LeoDex generates revenue. The first is affiliate fees, and those are paid by Maya protocol. Every time there's a swap over $150 on LeoDex, a 45 basis point fee is taken from that swap, and it's paid to the LeoDex affiliate address. So, whether someone's swapping Ethereum to Bitcoin, and there was just a big swap the other day for about $10,000 from Ethereum to Bitcoin, or Leo to Dash, or Dash to Hive. Anything over $150, we get a 45 basis point fee, and that gets collected in that affiliate address. It's typically paid as cacao, and then if people pool, it's paid in the other asset too. But then we take 50% of those affiliate fees, and then we buy Leo with it, and then we take the 100%, which is Leo plus cacao, and then we pool it. So let's just say that LeoDex earns $1,000 in a month in affiliate fees. That would be $500 in buying pressure on Leo, and then $500 worth of cacao, and then it would pool the total 1,000 into the Leo cacao pool. And then just to talk about briefly, the second form of revenue from LeoDex is from the Arbitrum Leo bridge. So every time Leo is converted to Arbitrum Leo or back to Leo on Hive, there's a 50 basis point fee that's taken. And that, right now we actually haven't allocated that officially towards anything, but I think what's going to happen is we're going to allocate that to the Leo swap.hive pool. It's kind of like the unofficial, where it's going. Right now it's just pooling up in that Oracle address. So you've got these two core forms of revenue that come in, whether people are swapping, assets on Maya that have nothing to do with Leo or Hive, or they're swapping, Hive or Leo on Maya protocol using LeoDex. You've got these two, great forms of revenue that really just scale up with trading volume. The way that they create a financial flywheel, and I know you talked a little bit about flywheels that aren't necessarily financial. I mean, you look at like driving data for Tesla, and that's a flywheel that's not necessarily financial, but it's a flywheel nonetheless. The way that these flywheels operate is that you've got this revenue coming in. So let's just focus on the affiliate revenue on LeoDex. So, again, using that example of $1,000 coming in, that $1,000, so you've got the $500 in organic buy pressure that kind of has like an immediate impact on the Leo market, the Leo token market, by having that organic buy pressure. But then you've got the kind of more long-term effect of the flywheel, which is that Leo that got bought is being paired with cacao, and then it's being deployed into that liquidity pool as permanent liquidity. So that liquidity will never move. And with that, you've essentially got every month that more and more liquidity stacks up in that pool, the liquidity depth deepens for that liquidity pool, for the Leo cacao pool. And when you have more liquidity depth, you can facilitate more trading volume and bigger swaps. So the bigger that liquidity depth becomes, the more that you can swap, whether it's the Hive aggregator or any other Leo-based swap on Maya protocol. So you can kind of see how you get some initial traction, you get a little bit of momentum in the flywheel, and then you start to see liquidity deepen on a monthly basis. And then as that liquidity continues to deepen, the size of swaps and the number of swaps can also increase. So I've written blog posts about that years and years in the past about Thorchain and how they were creating, kind of like this black hole theory of liquidity, which is, you kind of have a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. But if you can get past the initial stage of getting some initial liquidity and some initial flywheel effects, then the liquidity deepening ultimately leads to more trading volume, and more trading volume ultimately leads to more permanent liquidity, which then leads to more trading volume. So it feeds on itself. So that's kind of like the core flywheel that we're trying to build. And with the Hive aggregator, we've now become, LeoDex has become the only place where you can swap layer one Hive in a decentralized, permissionless way. So there's other exchanges out there, but all of them are centralized. They're centralized in some form. This one is literally just, an L1 swap. So I think that is going to have a huge impact in the long run. And I've been a long-term believer in, decentralized exchanges and the value that they bring. I don't think you have to look very far to find examples of why centralized exchanges are a security risk. You can look at FTX, you can look at, even CZ just went to jail for 4 months. And then you can also look at, obviously something near and dear to most of us is the Steam hostile takeover. So, there's a lot of reasons to pull trading volume away from centralized exchanges. And I think for the Hive ecosystem, this has been something I've wanted to achieve for a really long time. And finally getting Leo onto an L1 Dex rail like Maya, and then obviously building the Hive aggregator and then the LeoDex interface that ultimately achieves that vision. But getting back to the flywheel, I mean, it's I kind of want to hear your thoughts on it because I've obviously hammered away on this point, in the AMAs and in blog posts. But I getting that initial momentum is very difficult. Like LeoDex has only earned, I think, about $170 in fees so far. So in terms of only affiliate fees, that's not including wrapping fees. So, obviously the initial momentum needs to get kickstarted if we want to really see adoption and the flywheel effect kind of take hold. But, the impact of it on such a small economy is really incredible. Leo is only a $1.7 million market cap right now, which I think is absolutely insane. Um, and I'm excited to see what we can achieve as we kind of hammer in on user experience for LeoDex. But I'll let you jump in. I want to hear your thoughts, and then obviously you've got another flywheel effect with Leo Premium, but I think we're kind of focused on LeoDex right now.
Well, I got a couple more flywheels to go over, but yeah, with LeoDex, I think there's another angle here which I think would be beneficial for you to explain before we get to just the monetary aspect of it, um, and that's the fact that there's the Maya interface wars. There's the Maya, or I guess you would say the Cacao Leo liquidity pool. These are things outside of Leo. They're facing outside. And as you said, the big transaction that took place, you don't even believe was somebody from Leo. It was from somebody outside. And so I think an important aspect when we're looking at the LeoDex flywheel is there's another wave that can feed into this, is these different things tied to Maya, these different things tied to Thorchain, and you threw up another thing that I commented on about another chain, and I'm like, I don't even know what that is, and you said it's similar to these two. There is the ability to ride the wave of their innovation, their expansion, and the integration that they do, because LeoDex is inserting itself right into the middle of at least Maya, which means that any of these other things that end up being tied to it, that ends up helping LeoDex because LeoDex is right there. And so the better we look, the more transactions we do, the deeper the liquidity pool we have, all of these things that are shown up on MayaScan or whatever they call it, that only helps Leo because other people are looking at it. And like you said, if people are looking at a comparison of the front ends, and yes, you may be biased, but Nifty has looked at all the front ends and he's come out and said there's really no comparison in the ease of use and the usability of these front ends compared to Leo. Leo just blows them away. So maybe you should comment on some of the things that are happening on outside of LeoDex that LeoDex can actually benefit from.
Yeah, it's so earlier today I sent you something about chain flip. I think we were just going back and forth on some threads. So Thorchain was kind of like the leading protocol, the initial the initial L1 cross chain DEX. Maya protocol is a friendly fork of Thorchain, and they're focused on some of the more fringe integrations. So, for example, like Thorchain doesn't have Arbitrum integrated, but Maya does. Um, and then Maya's goal is to become an aggregator for Thorchain as well, which basically just means that they'll connect through their Rune cacao pool and some aggregation technology. They'll connect Maya protocol to Thorchain, and then anything on Thorchain and anything on Maya can be seamlessly traded against each other. which I've used as kind of a really cool example because what Maya is attempting to do with that aggregator is literally what we just did with the Hive aggregator um, for the Hive ecosystem. So Maya is to Thorchain kind of like what Leo is to Hive in the trading sense of things, where we've just aggregated all of Hive, and now you can trade any Hive assets for anything on Maya across the aggregator that we built. So Maya is attempting to do the same thing with Thorchain. And by the way, right now you can only trade Hive on LeoDex, but we're working on adding the other assets on Hive like SPS deck, HVD, and you'll be able to trade those on LeoDex soon too with anything that's on Maya. Um, so there's Maya, there's Thorchain, and then now there's Chainflip, which is a newer one on the scene. They each three have kind of their own unique aspects and unique offerings to the market. So Chainflip has other integrations that Thorchain and Maya don't have. The kind of key piece for us is that we've started with Maya, and we've obviously still got a lot of work to do. Right now we're just focused on improving and refining the user experience, hammering out any bugs. I mean, the UI is like 2 weeks old, so focusing on hammering that stuff out. But in the long run, and there's a roadmap. I'll drop a link to it in the threadcast. But there's a roadmap for LeoDex, and in the long run, the roadmap includes integrating Thorchain and Chainflip into LeoDex and aggregating all three of these L1 protocols. And if there's any other ones in the future, we'll also add those. But we'll start aggregating all of these different L1 protocols. And when you enter in an input output for a swap, LeoDex will just find you the best price. It won't care where your swap is routed through. It will just find you the best price across those three different protocols, so that you as the user get the most efficient pricing for your swap. And you can look at protocols like 1inch that do it on Ethereum, for example. But the big difference here is that we're doing it across basically all the different blockchains once all three of these are integrated. So the important piece of that is that Thorchain, Chainflip, and Maya all three pay affiliate fees when you route a swap through their protocol. So in the long run, when LeoDex integrates all three of these, we'll be earning fees from all three different protocols, and those fees will do the exact same thing that I described before, which is 50% of the revenue goes to buying Leo. So that's organic, immediate buy pressure on Leo. And then it pairs it with the other 50% and then pools it permanently as permanent liquidity. And then obviously it spins that flywheel where if we see significant trading volume, then the liquidity depth for Leo grows. And as that liquidity depth grows, the potential usage of the Hive aggregator and just Leo swaps in general increases, which ultimately leads to more fees getting generated, which ultimately leads to more liquidity getting pooled.
Yes, basic 101 there. And I think an important point, um, and we'll revert back to this, because I think if we go through the next couple sections, then we can tie it back into LeoDex. And the fact is, these pools are USD dollar denominated. So when you start to talk about liquidity, it's in USD. And I think that's very important because we're putting Leo in either the diesel pool or the cacao pool, and both of them are USD denominated. So obviously, the greater the price of Leo, the deeper the pool. Simply if the price of Leo goes up 5%, 10%, 20%, or 100%. So I think that's an important factor. Before we get to the next section, there's a bunch of questions coming in, Cal, so I'll throw some of them at you. Let's see. Where did it start? These are... Some of them you answered either on the AMA. Are you going to promote LeoDex outside of Hive? Yeah, we touched that. Leo loses value against Hive from 33 to 35 2 weeks ago to 28 today, even though the LeoDex commission should be pushing it up. Does the automatic purchase mechanism work yet? As I understand it, it should convert commission into Leo vested to pools. Do you, under, do you
Yeah.
understand that? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's kind of one of those funny things where like a token goes up 10x in price and then it goes down 10%, and people are like, wait, why is it going down? Well, there's always a reversion to the mean. So, I mean, if you look at Leo right before LeoDex was kind of announced and started, I think we were sitting at like zero point 0.1 or 0.12, Leo per Hive. And now obviously it's like 3x that. So, I think going from zero point 0.3 to 0.28 is not concerning. If you're concerned about the price at all. And yes, the buying. I saw another question in there that was asking if or when Leo Premium subscriptions will be used to buy Leo and pool it in these pools. That's already happening. It's been happening since day one. So yeah, all these mechanisms are already in place. The LeoDex affiliate address hasn't bought any Leo and pooled it yet, just because it's not really at a critical mass yet. We have it set right now to be every $500 interval, which is what Leo Pool is also set at. So every time it reaches $500, it converts $250 into Leo using whatever best pricing it can get. And then it pools it against the other 50%, which prior to LeoDex was Leo and Hive, and post LeoDex right now is Leo Cacao. But I don't know if you want to get into it, but essentially the most important place to pool liquidity now is these two pools, Leo Cacao and Leo Swap.hive, because those are the ones that are used for the Hive aggregator. So right now it's just focused on Leo Cacao because I think that's kind of like the critical point to put liquidity in, and the Leo Swap.hive pool is essentially the equal value with the Leo Cacao pool. So in the long run, like if those were to become really imbalanced, like let's say the Leo Cacao pool became like $1 million in liquidity depth and the Leo Hive pool was say $100,000, then I think we would switch gears and the affiliate address would start pooling Leo Hive, to kind of even them back out.
Yeah, understood. Um, Liquid Eye. Inleo has 1 year live time for us breaking it and Cal and the development team fixing it. Would Inleo be as far right now as it would have released just yesterday after 1 year only working behind the scenes? I'm going to guess you're much further ahead by breaking stuff in the real world, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually put out a blog post, I think like 3 days ago from the Leo Finance account, kind of talking about the year in review because it was the 1 year anniversary of when the Project Blank UI officially was released, which is obviously now Inleo.io. My approach has always been to say fuck it, we're doing it live. That's kind of like the funny meme we've got. Uh, when you build stuff in a vacuum and don't break stuff, you can spend all day, all night, theorizing about how things can break and trying to prevent them from breaking and, trying to make development happen in a vacuum. And ultimately, whenever you finally do release it to the real world, there's still going to be things that you couldn't foresee. There's so many things that you just couldn't predict. And that's just the nature of really building anything, but especially building software that people use. So, once we put stuff like it's not like we don't do any testing. We release stuff as a team. We have a dev UI. Me and the devs, we kind of try to break things on our own for a few days, but then we ultimately push it to production and let you guys try to break it, which ultimately saves a lot of time. If you consider that an iteration cycle is just to use a completely arbitrary number, but consider that an iteration cycle is, we push a new update and then it gets used 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways. And then we find, out of those 1,000 times, 50 different times it broke because of, XYZ circumstances. If you consider that to be an iteration cycle, then do you think it would happen faster if there were 5 people, trying to create those 1,000, those 1,000 usage points, or is it going to happen faster if there's 1,000 people trying it 1,000 times? Um, so that's really where I think our power comes in as a community to build products that are really good. Obviously, what that also comes with is every time we release something new, XYZ things break and then we have to fix them. But that would happen regardless of if we release them or not. I mean, it's like I said, is it going to happen more slowly in a vacuum where just only the devs and I see what's breaking? Or is it going to happen, by pushing it into your hands and then we do it, 100 times faster?
Yes, I would say that that makes sense. You're better off in the wild and let it take its shots than fix it because if you could figure out everything in a lab, the developers would release software with no bugs. But they everything works fine in the labs. Then you go live and it's like, oops, this blew up. Abundant Grace, do you mean I should get more Leo than Hive? This is not financial advice. You buy what you like, but many of us are very optimistic about Leo. Liquid Eye said, so when's the time to go out to the world and aggressively market LeoDex to the masses? Whenever you want. Yeah, he mentioned chain flip. What are the coins, tokens that are currently planned to be on LeoDex? You covered that. Look at what's on Thorchain or Maya tells that. And we got HBD, DEC, and SPS on the aggregator end coming up pretty soon. So that's a good thing. Yeah, Thorchain assets created voice. What cryptos can I buy on LeoDex? Again, just go to Maya and you'll see all that's there. Cal include the roadmap. Fish asked, what are the savers that are to be added in May? Do you want
Yeah,
to?
so Thorchain has savers if you go to like something like ThorSwap and look, they've got something called savers, and essentially what a saver is the ability to deposit one asset and earn yield on it. So, for example, you could deposit Bitcoin and you can earn yield on that Bitcoin, and you don't have any risk of impermanent loss. So, it's different than pooling, say, Bitcoin Rune, where you've got the potential for impermanent loss if the two assets don't, perform identically in the market, which obviously they don't. And Maya has savers. I don't know how much they're getting used. I think it's relatively new for them, but there aren't that many UIs on Maya that actually allow you to save. I know that Eldorado has it, and then there might be one or two others. I'm not even sure. So in May, sometime this month, we're going to add savers to the LeoDex UI. So you'll be able to deposit, for example, like Bitcoin by itself, and you'll earn yield on Maya, just in the like kind asset. And then obviously when we integrate Thorchain, we'll also have Thorchain savers.
Excellent. Are there plans to integrate meme coins, blockchain tokens? You answered that. Listen, people, LeoDex is going to tie into whatever Maya handles, and then ultimately whatever Thorchain handles. This is, if I'm understanding it correctly, Cal, this is integrated into that. So LeoDex is not deciding what to carry. That's up to Maya, that's up to Thorchain, on that end of things. Obviously, on the Hive side of things with the Hive aggregator, so far they tied into Hive. Next up is DEX, HBD, and SPS. And ultimately, I presume it will be all Hive Engine tokens and maybe even down the road, all VSC tokens, depending on how that goes. But in terms of adding, somebody was saying about the fees. Well, you should add LTC, which I believe LTC is on Maya anyway, but maybe I'm mistaken. But Cal, you don't decide what is integrated into that. You're at the mercy of what Maya is doing, correct?
Yeah, what Maya's doing. So right now we have Maya integrated. So anything that is on Maya is tradable on LeoDex. LeoDex is simply a UI for trading things that are on Maya. And then when we add Thorchain and we add Chainflip, it's a interface that aggregates the three protocols together. So anything tradable on any of those three protocols becomes tradable on LeoDex. And then we also obviously built the Hive aggregator, like you said. So we've got anything that's on Hive can also be traded on LeoDex, which, like I said, is a huge moat for LeoDex since we're the only cross chain UI that can do that. And the only way, and I mean, obviously, if you look further down the road, LeoDex being really successful and doing a lot of volume with the Hive aggregator could actually lead to other interfaces saying, "Hey, wait, I want to do this aggregation thing too." So they would either need to integrate, the Leo aggregator for Hive, or they'd have to build a liquidity pool for their own token on Hive and then build the UI around it. So essentially building what we've already built. So LeoDex's success could actually lead to more protocols getting very intimately familiar with Hive, whether they launch something directly on Hive or piggyback on what we've already built. And we're also really open with these other UIs that if they want to build, an aggregator that uses the Leo pools to aggregate Hive swaps as well, we'll do that with them. I'm hoping that like literally as we're talking, I'm talking to the devs, but today we should be releasing in the dev environment swaps that will allow DEC and SPS. And we've actually built an entire backend for it, which wasn't originally planned, but we've built a whole backend that allows any Hive engine token to get swapped. So now we were originally only going to do SPS, DEC, Hive, and HBD, but now we're actually going to allow any Hive engine token to be swapped across the aggregator because we ended up just building this whole backend anyways. And then you mentioned VSC. So I'm not intimately familiar with VSC's protocol, but I am aware that there's going to be liquidity pools and a DEX interface. And with the liquidity pools, all we have to do is build a Leo liquidity pool on VSC, and then any VSC assets can be swapped on LeoDex with anything that is connected to Maya as well. So that's going to be pretty exciting. But yeah, I mean, we've brought Hive to the world of L1 dexes, and it's now you can go on LeoDex and trade anything with Hive. And then, like I said, soon you'll be able to do it with any Hive engine tokens and HBD as well.
Yeah, and simple game affirmed users can test more in 1 hour than dev team can in multiple years. To release it early builds to get important feedback. So yeah, that kind of aligns with what you were saying. Abundant Grace. What price do we see Leo go highest in the next 12 months? Asking for a friend who wants to join and buy some Leo. $100 per token, and that's guaranteed by Sam Bankman-Fried. So SBF will guarantee that $100 per token. You just have to get into the correct prison that he's in, and he will pay you. We've been having Space on X. We'll have meetings on Inleo. That's a whole different development game and not on the immediate roadmap. In a way, we're all building this great project together. By the way, how many MAUs are we at right now? That is for a Nomad Soul. Cal doesn't really track that. I don't think. Do you have the latest MAUs, or you haven't gotten that from Nomad Soul?
Yeah, we talk about it every week. So we're at about 1,600 monthly active users. Hasn't really moved a whole lot in the last couple months. So, we've been in the last, throughout April and now through May, I've told the devs that I only want to focus on fixing bugs. I had a vision that we would get to feature complete, within a year of releasing the Project Blank UI, and we actually made really good time on that. But and this is what my last two blog posts talk about on the Leo Finance account, but building all these features, building them so quickly and releasing them so quickly built up a mountain of technical debt. And the definition of technical debt would just be, bugs that need to get fixed, outstanding issues that we have to address. things that you guys find that we couldn't find in a vacuum. So, I fully knowing that things would break and things would be a little unsteady, I kind of charged our dev team forward in terms of like, let's just roll out all these features that I have on the roadmap. Let's roll them out as fast as humanly possible. Let's push them out to the community. Let the community find everything that's wrong with them, and we'll just keep kind of forging ahead. And as that technical debt builds up, we'll be aware of it and we'll fix kind of like the critical issues, but allow some things to kind of stack up in the back of our minds and on our roadmap. And then once we get to that kind of feature complete stage, which I would say that we're in right now, I would say that Inleo has, the core features that it needs. That's not to say that no new features are needed or useful or are coming in the future, but I believe right now we're in a stage where we have the features that we need for this particular moment. We've got premium, we've got articles, we've got threads, the dashboard, and bookmarks, and all the various features that we've built over the last 12 months. And now the focus is, let's clear out the technical debt and get it to zero. And when we get it to zero, you guys will know it, and you'll very much feel it on the front end. And I hope that you guys already feel a difference in the past month, because we've pushed, in the past 60 days, we've pushed like 80 bug fixes. And these are like critical bug fixes, not including small ones. So there should be a clear change in the user experience already. And then throughout May, I've told the devs that by the end of May, I want to be at a tech debt of zero. So that is the current focus.
Excellent. And actually, this leads into the next phase of what's on the agenda, talking about the UI. By the way, people, do you realize there's a search bar on Leo, Inleo.io, that you can actually type things in and search for different things? And I don't think this is something people are using, because I won't mention it, but somebody asked, how can we find something? And I replied, well, type it in the search and it comes right up. So there are tools already on the UI that we have to utilize. But one thing Ahmed said, and this is really a sticking point with me. Just a reminder that consumers don't care if it's centralized or decentralized, and that's true, but what's more convenient to use and has the lowest fees. Currently, Simple Swap works fine for me for converting Hive to other coins. Would love if LeoDex offered a better service. Here's a problem. This is Web 2 thinking. How much do you own in Simple Swap? How much do you own in Leo? Everybody who has the Leo coin, whether it's in your liquidity pool, one of the liquidity pools, whether it's in your wallet is Liquid Leo, or if it's Leo Power and you're curating with it, you have a part of this system. You are an owner. And this is where I think the transition from user, give us features, to owner, build tools for us to utilize, comes in. And when we're talking about the flywheel effect, and so far we focused on LeoDex, but that is far from the only flywheel. And so when we look at LeoDex.io, the UI, just like I was talking about with Tesla and focused on data, what does that have to do with cars? What does that have to do with revenues? Well, obviously you can take the miles driven, and through the subscriptions, it gets monetized. As Cal was describing, liquidity pool on Maya, liquidity pool on Hive Engine, diesel pool, people staking Leo. If I'm not mistaken, I think the number was at one point over 70% of all Leo was as Leo Power. Potentially down the road, a VSC liquidity pool. So what you have is you have Leo going in many, many different directions. But all of this stems from Leo Inleo.io. And there's another form of Flywheel that can take place just like with the data. In fact, there's a couple things that I think can happen on Inleo. One is data. Now, I'll throw that over to you, Cal, when I go through this, and you can take Leo Premium and Leo AI together, because data feeds into Leo AI. But what we do on Inleo doesn't operate in a vacuum. It applies to a lot more. And what you have with Inleo, and this is the greatest model that business has ever seen. It's the digital platform business model. It's what's created Apple, Meta, Google, Amazon, Microsoft to a degree. Some of your biggest companies in the history of the world, and I'm sure it's the same thing for Alibaba and Tencent and the Chinese counterparts, they all utilize the digital platform business model. What is that? That's kind of what we've been talking about with the Flywheel. Basically, what a digital platform excels at is it takes incremental increases in value and spreads it across the entire platform. And thus, it spreads it across to every user in the platform. So, for an example, a quick example is if the development team brings out a new tool, a new feature, that update goes into place. That affects everybody who's using the UI. Everybody. Everybody instantly benefits from that. Now, maybe only 5% of the people use it, because to 95% of the people, they don't care. But if, let's say the search, which I mentioned before, let's say they upgrade the search and that improves. That helps everybody who is using the search. This is Google's model. Google is the dominant player in search because their search is so much better because they have so many searches taking place. It just keeps feeding into their model and keeps growing it to the point where the other search engines have a difficult time catching up. So what you have with this business model, digital platform business model, the goal is to increase the number of interactions and the quality of interactions. And I know there goes that quality again, and that gets to be a very controversial point. But the idea is to start feeding more and more and more in. So when we look and what I've been doing the last couple months is what I just phrased proof of concepts. So what are these proof of concepts? News on Leo, music on Leo, movies on Leo, AI images. Then you have Adam Barrett with travel on Leo and books on Leo, and Bradley Arrow jumped in with meme on Leo. And what it is it's the idea of creating more ways for people to engage. So when we start to look at what's being put on chain, the more that's in the database, the more that can be engaged with. I've started taking, and you'll notice in the last few days, I've started taking and throwing up some documentaries. And I'll get to video in a second. And under the documentary, I put the name of the documentary. This is just nothing off but a documentary off YouTube. Name of the documentary. Then I put the tags. I put the URL, the share code. And then I put a poll. So now this thread can be watched. It can be commented on. Of course, it can be voted. It can be rethreaded. And it has a poll in it. And if it's a documentary about World War II, you can watch it today or you can watch it in 10 years. World War II's been over for about 80 years. So it's not like it's going anywhere. Not like anything's changing. This is the point. That's a lot different than, oh, the weather is rainy today. That's what I mean by the quality. Because it can stimulate more engagement. When I throw up a poll, I guess I get an average of 4 votes maybe on them. So if I throw up 5 polls, there's 20 interactions. Nothing major. We're not taking over Twitter. The point being is the more of that stuff that's there over time, the more stuff that can be engaged in. So polls is a wonderful way. One of the things that we need, and this will have to be added to Cal's list, is I think search needs to be improved, but that probably doesn't improve till people use search more often. But the other thing is we need a recommend engine. Now we have a recommend engine on the blog post, and Cal's talked about it on the AMA. That has to be ripped apart, redone. But think of it this way. What if you went to YouTube and you watched a video on YouTube and that was it? When you go to YouTube now, you watch a video, you get like 20 other recommendations of similar type videos or videos they think you would like. But what if there was none of that? See, that's Threads right now. Hopefully that gets addressed where if you watch a documentary on, you know, the early race in space, then all of a sudden there's 6 or 7 other documentaries and Threads on space, they get recommended. That's what increases activity. That's what increases interactions. That's what increases the interactions that we have. And now, if you notice, like News on Leo, I've been taking newscasts, you know, just news clips off of YouTube from different news agencies and posting that as the news. Why? Video is very valuable. We need to have 1 million hours of video on Leo. Now, I know there's no uploading of our stuff into Leo like 3Speak or like YouTube. But that doesn't mean we can't get video from elsewhere. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I'll be writing an article about this tonight, anybody who follows me the last couple days notices I've been doing Leo Shorts. In fact, I've been tagging Leo Shorts. I probably did 4 or 5 videos over the last 2 or 3 days, which are shorts. Now, how can that be done without the ability to upload to Leo? Well, obviously, we have to use something else as a repository, which in this case, I use 3Speak. And as I said, I'll be putting together an article tonight with screenshots of how to do that. But there is a way to do shorts on Leo. Not direct, but we can get it done through the embed feature. So everybody who's premium has the ability to do this. So what was just said, the point being is we can sit back and say, Cal, do this. We can sit back and say, well, the development team needs to do this. They need to do this. And there are certain things that's absolutely correct. I can't add a recommend feature in Leo. I can't fix the search engine. I can't add any more tools. I can just provide feedback and say I would like to see this. But there's still a lot more stuff that I can do, and each of us can do. And the community has to step up. And so, Cal, one of the questions you asked is, how do we kick off this flywheel for LeoDex? And I think it ties into the same thing here about the flywheel in Leo. We have to start in our own house. We have to start with our own side of the street and start cleaning that. So to me, LeoDex starts with, what are we, the people on Leo, doing? Are we taking ownership of this? Are you using Simple Swap? Well, because it works for me. Well, do you have ownership in Simple Swap or do you have ownership in Leo? Now, if you have no ownership in Leo, you have no stake in Leo, you don't care about Leo, fine, do whatever the hell you want. But if you have Leo power, then I think you're in a different situation. Stop thinking Web 2, start thinking Web 3. So what has to happen with LeoDex is, in my opinion, number one, we have to take a look at where are we adding liquidity. Are you adding liquidity? Every little bit helps. Are you adding to the diesel pool? Are you adding to the Maya pool, to the Leo Cacao pool? Are you adding it? And if you don't have $1,000, you don't have $100. If you have 20 Leo, well, you can add 20 Leo and swap that, cut that in half, and put the associated Hive in there. So you have Leo and Hive in the diesel pool. It helps with the liquidity. Are you looking at selling some of your assets? Are you looking to swap some of your coins? Are they available on LeoDex? If so, use it. As Cal said, under $150 is there's no fee. And I think we have to distinguish between there's no affiliate fee, but there are transaction fees. So if you are swapping Bitcoin to Ethereum, there's going to be the Bitcoin fee, there's going to be the Ethereum fee, because they're just those fees. If you're moving stuff around, you're moving stuff around, and that's the blockchain. But all of this stuff ties together, because as I was saying before, with the USD price and the depth of the liquidity, as we start all of this stuff and this bigger flywheel, what does that do to the value of Leo? It pushes it up. Now, hopefully that value gets mirrored in the markets, not guaranteed, because markets are doing their own thing. But you would think as people get more active, as there's more interaction, both with Leo, Inleo.io, both with LeoDex, as people spend more time on Leo, watching videos, engaging in videos, putting up polls, voting in polls, doing all this stuff, that should drive the value of Leo higher. And if the price of Leo goes up, guess what happens to these liquidity pools? Exactly what Cal was saying, they get deeper. And so if I'm going and I want to swap $50,000, doesn't matter how many Leo that's worth, it's the USD price. So we need a liquidity pool deep enough that I can swap 50K. If it's 1,000 Leo, because it's $50 a pop, or it's 100,000 Leo because it's, what did I say, $5 a pop, or whatever the math works out to, it makes no difference because it's all in USD. So it always comes back to, in my opinion, driving that value. And Leo, Inleo.io, is very important in this process. And that is where it falls down to community. Cal can't do this. The developers can't do this. This has to fall upon us. And the one reason why I wanted to bring this up on the Lion's Den is because the people who tend to be on here week in and week out are the ones like Mike Possibly, like Adam Barrett, Bradley Arrow when he can, Lisa Gentile, the people who are involved, who are interested in adding to this stuff. And hopefully we can get more people looking and saying, okay, I can add a lot more to this flywheel on Leo, in Leo itself. And then what does that do for the data? Because there's this thing called Leo AI out there. And then there's also this thing called Leo Premium. So Cal, maybe you want to talk a little bit about Leo AI and how we can try to kick off the flywheel for that, and then we can try to bleed into Leo Premium.
Yeah. So with Leo AI, it's and this has kind of been in development now for what has it been? Probably about 8 months. And if it sounds like I'm out of breath, I'm cycling right now. But Leo AI is collecting all the information on threads right now. So anything you post on the Hive blockchain is getting indexed by Leo AI. And ultimately what that's going to mean is that as a premium user, you'll be able to use Leo AI to do various things on.
You're just muted. He went mute. We haven't lost him, but Cal, you're showing up as your mic is muted. Yeah, there you are. You went.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my headphones disconnected. So so Leo AI is kind of like that long term, long shot. I think it's kind of like the Optimus robot for Tesla. It's going to be something that's further down the line, but will ultimately be probably one of the most useful things on Inleo. But the premium flywheel, you kind of got into it a little bit, but all the revenue generated by premium ultimately goes into Leo Pool, and then Leo Pool is moving that over to the Leo Cacao pool on Maya. So, what I want to see is 1,000 premium users, and I've been talking about that for a long time. And we're at 200 right now. So, Tass, what do you think about you know, the current feature set of premium, and where do you think, what do you think we need to do to add more value to premium to get to 1,000?
Well, I think that's a multifaceted approach, and I don't think there's any magic wand that you and Eric and the rest of the development team could sit around a table and say, okay, let's have a meeting and we'll add these features and that'll push us up 500%. Because I don't think there's exactly that answer. I think it's an evolutionary thing. And I think it ties into exactly what I was just talking about, where the community has to start building value for Leo.io. And the feature set, as more features start to roll out, there's certain things that you can add in. And also you have the opportunity for cross-pollination. So one of the things that you've mentioned a time or two on the AMAs, which I think is a great idea, is you have the ability to incorporate Leo Premium into LeoDex as a metric of the fees, the affiliate fees that one is charged. So maybe if you are premium, you get a 5, 10, 15, whatever percent reduction in your affiliate fees. The other advantage you also have is you could do something similar with Leo Power. And I don't know what that would look like, but obviously Leo Power gives people certain levels of, I don't know if commitment's the right word, but you have different levels. So if you have X number of Leo Power, this opens up the door to this. Y Leo Power gets you this, Z Leo Power gets you that. And so are there ways to integrate Leo Premium, Leo Power that people are holding into some of these other features or services? More specifically, that are being utilized. Now, again, with Leo Premium, the tendency is for the community to sit back and say, oh, Cal, build us this, figure something out, and roll it out. Well, we also have to figure out use cases. And I'll use what Simple Game is doing. Simple Game is integrating Leo Premium into his development, where if you are a Leo Premium user, you get a discount on his platform that they're building for certain things. So that automatically adds value to Leo Premium, and that came from outside the Leo development team or the Leo team itself. And I think that's crucial. So how do we make it more appealing? I don't think the idea of just trying to appeal just based upon upvotes is the way to go. I think one of the things we need to stress, for those who can afford Leo Premium, if you have Leo Power, you should be getting Leo Premium. It's really that simple, because it's supporting the ecosystem. It's supporting the platform. It's going into the liquidity pool. It's showing support for the system, and you're getting added features to it. I think it's something that we need to keep talking about. I think it's something that we need to use as a metric for certain things as other features come out. And I think you should start to look at rolling as many features into Leo Premium as possible without necessarily deterring from the freemium model, from somebody who shows up and just says, I want to use this thing. So when you have the ability to do certain things, add certain things, the amount of stuff you can do, all of that could be tied in some way, shape, or form to Leo Premium. And I know I'm speaking in very general terms, because without knowing what feature sets you're working on, without knowing what type of development plan specifically you have, I can't get exact in terms of the specifics. But I think we need to start to look at evolving this into more than just a Twitter clone. And the Everything app has been thrown around, but I think that entails moving far beyond just what we're seeing now. And I still stand by, it has to be more than just Cal, Eric, and the other developers. it has to be the community stepping up and saying, how can we make this all more valuable? And now that you understand the flywheel effects, every idea has the potential to have major impact. You are free to come up with any idea you want and test it out just by posting threads, just by using tags. See if it works. And if there is something that takes off, like let's say Leo Shorts, the way I'm doing it, could we get something simple in the intern like Leo Shorts tag set up? Not tag, excuse me, Leo Shorts button set up on the menu while all the back end stuff's trying to be worked out? Maybe that's possible. But as I've said before, and Cal has echoed before, he's just not going to start that development if there's nothing happening. So we have to show the proof of concept first. We have to put up the numbers first and say, then we can go to Cal and say, listen, you know, over the last month, there's been 1,000 videos posted with Leo Shorts on here that people have built and done, and individual videos that people are doing TikTok style. We need a button on that menu that says Leo Shorts. Well, with 1,000 videos in 30 days, maybe Cal undertakes the development. But he's not going to do it with 4, not even going to think about it. So this is all part of the same process, and why the flywheel, this digital platform idea, everything you do tied to Leo has an effect. That's what digital platforms are designed to do, capture all of that value. So if you do a $4,000 or $5,000 trade using LeoDex, that has a direct impact. If you put up 100 different, over the course of a week, 100 different news on Leos, or comedy sketches, or whatever it is, that has an impact. If you put up 100 polls, especially if they're sticky polls, that has an impact. Maybe not today, but it has an impact down the road as the development takes place. And yes, your $10 a month or 10 HBD a month for Leo Premium, that helps. You are one of the roughly 200 doing it. So 200 times 10, that's 2,000 HBD available roughly to dump into the liquidity pool. That's $24,000 a year. Okay, that's not going to change the world, but it's a starting point. Now, what happens if you say, oh, forget Leo Premium, who cares? It doesn't give me very much. Well, do you have Leo Power? If you have Leo Power, you should be interested in $24,000 worth of liquidity going into the liquidity pool. And then, of course, we want to keep increasing it. So I don't know if that answered your question really, but this is a dual approach. You have the Leo team and you have the community. And we each have responsibilities. Each side has responsibilities. And when I say community, I'm talking people who have Leo power. If you have no Leo, you don't care, okay, do whatever you want. But I'm a firm believer, if you have Leo, it's time to take responsibility for some of what happens here. What are your thoughts, Cal?
Yeah, I've long been a believer in the, ownership model of like, if you've got the token, if you've got a stake, you have a say. And I think Leo takes that even a step further where you don't just have a say, but you actually have a direct impact, like you were saying, whether you're premium or, even just contributing something like videos, to the idea of Leo Shorts. You're absolutely right that, that the priority level of adding something like Leo Shorts is pretty low right now. And the reason being because, I'm not exactly sure that there's going to be 100 people, using it and making shorts. So why would I shift the development team away from, more core and critical developments to Leo Shorts until I see that? So, ultimately, I think the community has the ultimate say in the direction we take, but it takes community power for you guys to kind of organize and push those things forward. And whether it's LeoDex or premium, seeing the community rally around them and grow them is what will kind of keep things moving forward. There's only so much that we can do from a development and a marketing perspective.
Well, and there is the old adage, nothing breeds success like success. And I don't care whether we're talking about more activity, whether we're talking about more users, whether we're talking about greater liquidity, whether we're talking about more affiliate fees. It all has to start somewhere. That's the point of the flywheel. The hardest part is at the beginning, and so that's where the pushing has to take place. You're dealing with an object that's not in motion. And so we have to do that. But let's be honest, and to be perfectly candid, this morning I was active on in Leo. I was posting different things, and there were times where, and this is during the day in the United States, and I know in Europe it's still not bedtime. It was still awaken hours, and there were 7, 8, 9 minutes going between threads. Or there were times where I filled up the latest. I did 6, 7, 8 threads, and it was all me. Nobody else was threading. Now that's a problem, because if somebody does come in from the outside, what do they see? A dead site. What happens if you have a dead site? You leave. What happens if there's no liquidity in the liquidity pool? People can't trade. What if there's no transactions? And one of the things off the Maya interface wars that is encouraging, the affiliate fees are pretty low, the amount traded is pretty low, but the number of transactions is increasing. And LeoDex is moving up the chain a little bit. So there's a quantifier that we can hang our hat on. We need to start using it more often. But I understand where you're coming from with Leo shorts, because if you put a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of headaches, and a lot of back end work to bringing it out, and then what happens? Nobody uses it. Didn't we hear the same thing about GIFs, however you want to pronounce it? We need them. Second they went live, for about a day and a half, the feed was full of them, and then what happens? You rarely see them used. Same thing with polls. Oh, we need it. I mean, I'm the one screaming for it because I actually have a use case for them. But we need them, and then people don't do polls. So, that's where the community needs to set up. We are going to drive this by our actions, by our utility, what we use. Concerning polls, how long are they active for? Always infinitely? Liquid Eye asked that. I would say that polls will always be active, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they don't technically close. So
Yeah.
it's different than something like Twitter, where you've got, anyone can vote, and then you can vote multiple times because, it's not a real, account that you own. It's, it's Web 2. So at the end of the day, it's an entry in a database. So they have to close them after a certain period of time, which is 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to do that.
Yeah, and I think there's some plans where polls will be expanded to have different features added to polls, and maybe there's an idea for your Leo Premium. If you have Premium, you can set up a stake weighted poll. You can set up a poll that has an expiration date. Let's say a poll you want to do because you're doing a survey, or you're voting for something, or voting for something that's time sensitive for your community or something. And maybe you have to have Leo Premium for those features. Ahmed, nothing breeds success like success. Wise words. I read that on a bumper sticker. That's where I get most of my knowledge.
Yeah, and I've aligned, kind of talking about, a lot of the stuff you mentioned. With something like polls, we've got all this development that's actually sitting on the back burner right now. That we did a stake weighted poll, we tested it, and it worked. But again, like, people aren't really using polls. So right now, and like I said, the focus is on the technical debt anyways. But right now, why would we shift resources there if nobody's going to use them? So a lot of our resources right now are going into, obviously, that mountain of technical debt. And then after that, I'm thinking, premium is the only thing that really matters right now. Getting us to 1,000 premium and getting that flywheel going. So, polls, Leo shorts, that's all going to wait until we get to 1,000 premium in my mind.
Well, I mean, that's the way it is. If to change your mind, the community has to do something. Creative voice, can users buy bulk premium? That's been talked about on the AMA a number of times. Stuff is being addressed with that. Leo Premium shows my articles at the bottom of other articles and perhaps a selected thread each day when it rotates in with others in the threads until ads becomes a thing. I think that's a question from Bitcoin Flood. Sounds like
Yeah,
a
I think that's
statement.
it sounds like a feature request. And there are a lot of plans for making premium users content. So that's, anything from threads to blog posts. Show up more in the feeds and ultimately lead to more upvotes because you're getting more exposure. So, like I said, the goal right now is clear up that technical debt. And then I think it's hardcore on 1,000 premium members. And what that's going to look like is, as a dev team, we're just going to say, what is ultimately going to lead to more people signing up for premium? And in my mind, it's things like what Bitcoin Flood mentioned, which is, getting more exposure, getting more rewards. I look at why would someone become a premium member? And I think as Hivers, it's a big mix of, I want more rewards, I want more exposure, and I want my experience to be better because I spend so much time here. So it's kind of those three core things.
Bitcoin Flood asked, dare I ask when Steam on LeoDex? I just like selling it. I think Justin Sun will do an OTC deal with you, Bitcoin Flood. If not, check with SBF. He might work a deal. How does the Leo price increase due to LeoDex? Well, it takes Leo off the market, increases liquidity, increases transactions. It affects it in many, many different ways.
Yeah, and you could definitely look at that question as like it's a pretty logical. I mean, there's all the things you just mentioned, and then there's the pretty logical point of any dollar that is swapped on LeoDex is value for Leo. So Leo captures value off of every single dollar that moves through the interface.
Yeah, and we haven't even discussed the potential of, I mean, we kind of did with Leo Premium, but there also is the potential of LeoDex as an entryway, a gateway, an entry point where it can feed into other aspects of the Leo ecosystem, if not now, as they're developed in the future. So for example, let's say Leo AI down the road, Leo AI could be another service that is marketed to the LeoDex people who may or may not be on Inleo.io. But Leo AI could be either an integrated feature or also something that has a standalone URL or something like that, so that people can use it without necessarily, I mean, a subheading on Inleo, obviously, but it may be its own page like Google and Meta set up. And then that's something that, even if they're not involved in social media, they may have an interest in it. And then that may also stimulate them getting involved with Leo Premium. So you never know how this stuff feeds in.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Leo AI is really just an LLM model that is trained on Leo information. So things that you guys are posting in threads and blog posts. So as a LeoDex user, you could potentially see a future where you're like trading Bitcoin to Ethereum and there's a little search bar next to it and it says ask Leo AI. And you can say, what are people talking about? Or what are the biggest pieces of news about Bitcoin today? And you type it in that search engine, and then Leo AI is trained on the latest threads, and then it uses whatever you guys are talking about to give an answer.
Mm-hmm. See, that's why having conversations, why having many different types of threads, all different topics. Nothing happens in a vacuum in the technological world, especially in the digital world. There is always something behind it. And this is something people complain about. Oh, X and Facebook and Zuckerberg and Elon and the Google boys, and they take all our data and they're stealing our data. No, you give it to them. And what do? They keep repurposing it, churning it, feeding it into their compute, and monetizing it more and more and more and more. And everybody's sitting there saying, I'm not getting anything out of this. Well, guess what? On Leo, you have the ability to train a potential model that you will get something out of it. Because again, if you have Leo, Web3, read, write, own. You own. That simple. All new futures push the support level of the token to a higher level. This is what we call investment. Idiosyncratic, absolutely. You're making an investment, but it's not only investment in dollars or money. Yes, there is that capacity aspect to it. You can take your whatever, buy Leo, you can buy Hive, you can buy whatever you want. But with Leo, it's investment in time. It's an investment of energy. It's a commitment. It's dedication. Cal's been writing a number of threads about life as a startup or life running a startup. We're all startups, people. Your Hive account, your Leo account is a business. You're a startup. Would Leo AI give prompts? We're not going to go into all of that.
Yeah, one thing about Leo AI that I wanted to mention, and I've referenced this a few times, but the kind of critical moment for me, and like I said, it's been something that's trained on the real-time data of threads for the last, say, 8 months. And a while back, the first time I was able to use it, I asked it, what is Leo? And I'm sure if you guys search around, you can find that thread that I posted where I posted the answer it gave. But it gave an answer that you would not be able to find, on Google or anything. Like, the answer it gave was as if it was one of you guys, which is really the key of Leo AI, is that it's trained on your data. So it's like, what is Leo? Well, it's a community token where we gather to do X, Y, and Z. And that's really powerful.
Yeah. I mean, that's what these, I don't know if you want to call them specialized models, taking the LLMs and then, specializing them down based upon what you then train them on instead of just the generic stuff that Meta or Grok or whoever does. Winanda, yes, I do make use of the search bar. Good. Cal is very happy. Question, the more searches we do, is there an algorithm tied to search where that's improving the search or like Google does, or is there no correlation?
There is an element of when things are searched more frequently, they show up more frequently. So to other users. So it does improve the more you guys use it. And then I think Leo AI is going to be like the critical, game changer for that, where when you guys are searching, Leo AI is picking up on that too. And then, eventually when we plug it into search, people searched, similar thing, and we gave them this.
Oh, you're fading out a little bit there. Fish said the search bar is not the kind of bar I'm usually looking for. Okay. I think they have meetings for that. Let's see. The best part is that Lions enjoy finding bugs and reporting them. The whole community feels like a stakeholder, and that's great. Yeah. You talk to any developer, you need the feedback. Vicky Van, how do you visualize LeoDex helping increase Hive adoption rate? Is there a roadmap for it? I think that's been pretty much covered. LeoDex is becoming encompassing. Liquid Eye, even if it's annoying, sometimes it's great fun to see this project come together piece by piece over time and being able to help with feedback and have a say here and there. None of the future users will ever get that feeling of these founding times. That's a great point. But they'll have the privilege of using fully developed everything app and not needing to use anything else ever again. Well, I don't know if that'll be true. That's a great goal. It'd be great if they never have to use anything else again. But yeah, I mean, that is true. You have an input here. You have the ability to use the feedback tag. Cal reads them. we are designing the future. As he just said, these are the things that are on the back burner for him. Why? Because he doesn't see the need to deploy the resources and change the developers to focus on these, since he doesn't see a need now. So if we want to change the what's the word I'm looking for? The
Trajectory.
no, I'm going blank now. If we want to change what order of development takes place, we have that ability. We just have to show Cal, hey, we're here to change your mind. The community says we're going to do this, and it's not because we send feedback, it's because we actually are using stuff, even if it's a workaround, and then Cal can look at the workaround and say, you know what, we can make your life a lot easier. I'll put the developers on it. But if there's nothing going on, he's not going to do that. I mean, that's the way it is. So we do have input. By the way, try doing that with Facebook. Try doing that with X. Try doing that with any of these others. And what stake do you have in X or Meta or Google or any of these others? If optimism comes to LeoDex, I will be the core user. I don't know what that means. Is optimism a token or is it a...
It's a L2. It's an Ethereum L2.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually not sure if Thorchain or Chainflip has optimism. I feel like Thorchain has it, but it's like we keep saying, if Thorchain Maya or Chainflip has it, then LeoDex will have it. So that's the key way to know what's coming in terms of integrations.
Okay, here's a very important one by Bitcoin Flood, and I'll even expand on what he asked. Could you give me a really quick overcap of how adding liquidity into BSwap for Swap Hive Leo helps, as that's been a focal point for me at the moment? And I just like to add to that, and I think I know the answer, it's both. But when you have the diesel pool and you have the pool on Maya, which one do you add to? So there's kind of two questions being thrown at you.
Sorry, say the question one more time. You cut out at the end.
Bitcoin Flood asks, can you give me a really quick overcap of how adding liquidity into BSwap for the Swap Hive Leo helps, as that it's been a focal point for them. And then I added diesel pool versus Maya. If somebody is limited in their resources, where do they go?
I would say go to whichever pool has the thinnest liquidity. So, and that obviously there's just so many different stipulations based on, the user. Like if you're going to pool under $50, I would say you're pretty much, you should go to the Leo diesel pool. And the reason why is because there's no fees. And if you've got over $50, then I would say, well, do I want to hold Leo Cacao or do I want to hold Leo and Hive? And you may say I want to hold Leo Cacao because it's a little bit less correlated. Leo and Hive are relatively correlated. So, there's that element. And then if you just want to look at it as like you're doing an altruistic thing, like what do I want to do in terms of what is most valuable for Leo, then I would say look at which pool has the thinnest liquidity and then go into that pool. If that's your, if your goal is just how do I help Leo to the maximum degree.
Makes sense. Ahmed, polls with images would be great, though I think not enough people will use them. Well, first off, you got to make the polls. And by the way, you can put a poll with an image. I mean, I've been creating AI images. I put it up there and I put up a poll, rate this image. And then you also obviously have the emojis, different emojis you can add, stuff like that. How about adding polls perhaps extended to long posts? That's been discussed, and I know you tried it and there were glitches on the back end. Are there still plans to add polls to long form? I think, I have a use case and I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, there are still plans. I started working on it a little bit, and then I ended up pulling back just because I realized it was going to be a really big undertaking. And like I said, the priority was to get to feature complete, which in my mind is just a set of core features that you see right now,
Mhm.
and then adding a little bit more of the fringe features will come later. But ultimately, we're going to focus right now. It's like I said, we're going to focus right now on getting the UI to be zero tech debt, which means that you guys should be my KPI for the devs is that, and we have a dashboard where every time you guys get an error, it sends us a message. Right now, I think it's down to every about 8 to 10 minutes, we get an error message that somebody on the UI got an error. And before April, it was like literally like every 30 seconds, like someone was getting an error of some kind. So, that's gotten a lot better. And my KPI for the devs is, can we get this down to 10 hours? So I want to see us get to a point where someone faces a bug, but it's the time between bugs is 10 hours, which basically means that bugs are very, very infrequent. And for the average user, you probably would never see one. Um, and then from there we can start adding in more features. But like I said, my primary goal is make the UI extremely smooth, extremely fun, intuitive, and easy to use with a bug free experience. And then the second priority after that is going to be 1,000 premiums. And that is really just that is like my core driver right now. Is like I need to get this flywheel going for 1,000 premiums, and there's a lot of reasons driving that, but getting that flywheel going is my top priority. And even in the process of bug fixing and like I said with the KPI on the devs, that ultimately is also feeding into that goal of 1,000 premiums, because in my mind we won't get to 1,000 premiums if the experience on Inleo sucks. So we're going to get that experience to be flawless, and then focus entirely on getting to 1,000 premiums.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, we've gone past the 90 minutes here, so we've kind of overextended our welcome with Cal and taken up his time, and we appreciate you coming on the Lions Den and straightening us all out. Hopefully, people got a lot out of this. They understand the flywheel concept. It's not just one overriding thing. There's many different facets to it. So look at where you can start to kick things in motion and move energy in a forward direction, and that'll have an impact elsewhere. It's like a wave rippling through the water. So with that, we will shut this down, and thank you everybody for showing up. And Tuesday again, the AMA, roughly around 12:30 Eastern time. Cal and Scaredy Cat on that. And so, Cal, you have any final thoughts that you want to share?
No, I think we covered everything pretty well. Appreciate you having me on, and yeah, like I said, I mean the goal on LeoDex and in Leo in general right now is premium flywheel and LeoDex flywheel. And I think getting these two things is what really takes us the next step toward $100 million market cap, which has been my goal since the beginning. So I think many of us are already aligned in achieving that. And Task, you're doing a great job, encouraging people to be true owners, and not only, back the mission and talk about how good the mission is, but actually be a part of the change and be a part of that mission. So, yeah, thanks again.
Excellent, excellent. So, everybody, have a great day, and we'll see you on Threads. Ciao.